Save.
Turned out to be good. No.
Where?
I want your face.
Do you want to draw the pitchfork or do you want to?
Trying to see what it says. So what is the scream tank gonna be?
That is fair. I draw something.
Power.
Power?
Because it represents like the power that they have over people and physical power.
Okay. Cool. Are you always watching Wazowski?
It's so easy to draw.
Wait, did you say brave? Like, can we do bravery or brave? Just brave.
Just put bravery, because bravery is a noun.
Okay.
Brave is an adjective. Your cricky looks ready to fight.
Yeah, he was gonna fight.
Okay.
Is that bad? It's about to fight for luck. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I'm gonna go with a whole bunch of vines and some trees.
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, that'd be pretty.
A whole bunch of
What are you doing? Oh, you just taking a picture of it.
Miss Bowman, do you have a gray one? Very big.
I really love you.
What is your other thing?
Oh, it's a
yours-
pitchfork.
The pitchfork.
Yeah, we're gonna draw it.
I have a gray marker. Yeah, it's right
No, she said just,
Yeah,
Let me scoot by you. Whoop, I'm sorry.
Yeah, do the lines like all over and now, you know.
What are you doing?
Video.
Why are you videoing?
okay, where's that? Where's that color? Because I'm about to do a whole bunch of vines.
For posterity.
So it's right here.
I think we should close that in with a color pencil because it's gone.
Mine should be green.
Yeah, but you're not in it.
I know, but I don't get it.
Was brown and gray.
She does this all the time.
Hey, it's Maggie. Let me tell you what we're doing this week for EOC review and how I'm trying to make it fun and interactive. Woohoo! So, first of all, just let me say, I teach all English 2 classes right now, which are 10th graders, sophomores, and I'm in North Carolina where 10th grade English 2 classes are EOC classes, and EOC stands for end of course. And I know a lot of states have these and they call them all different kinds of names. Like I've heard people talk about the STAR test and stuff like that. So that's kind of, I guess, our version. The EOCs are really important because obviously they go in for my EVAS scores. They're 20% of the kids' final grade in the class, and they count a lot for our school's letter grade and I guess funding and stuff like that. So they're a big deal, and we want our kids to do well on them as usual. So we do a lot of review at the end for things that might show up on the exam. So when I first started teaching, we did a lot of read the text, answer the question, we'll go over it, and that's it. Kind of test review. And it's helpful, but like, God, it's boring. The kids hate it. I hate it. So this year, I've really pushed myself to try and come up with fun, interactive ways for us to review things that might show up on the test. And so far, the kids have reacted really well to it. I think next year I'm going to start doing these things more interspersed between our like normal lessons and stuff, because they're really into it and they're doing really well on them. So one of the big things that I found out my kids didn't know was theme, even though we've talked about it all year, and they talked about it in the 9th grade previously. So I was like, we're going to review the crap out of it. So here's what we did. I have these huge pieces of paper, and this is like paper that was just in our like supply closet. It's just huge, loose pieces of paper. It's about the size of an anchor chart, maybe a little bit bigger. And what I did was I went and put every single text that we have read this year, whether it's a short story, a poem, a novel, a play. We even did like a video game kind of thing, and I put that on there, and I put them up all around the room, and I'll show you after I'm done talking. And The kids had a very small group, and with that small group, they had to go around the room and pick a text that we've read and write a one-sentence theme on it. The catch was, if there was a theme already on the piece of paper that was too similar to theirs, like let's say for the book Night, they wrote one about death or faith or hope. If it had that word in it and you came to write yours up and yours also had that word in it, you had to come up with a new one. So it really forced them to push themselves to think about it. And it worked out good because I had my inclusion class do it first. So they really got to kind of put their first thoughts on it. Not many people had wrote on it. Then my academic class did it next. And so they had to really think to get through some of them. My honors class is doing it today, and they're doing it last. So that's really funny because they're going to have to work really hard to come up with them, because you'll see as we go around, the pages are almost already full. So they're going to have to really try. So then the other thing that we did to help understand theme is I really like to use movies for them to help understand theme, because obviously to the kids, a movie is a lot more exciting than a book or a play or whatever. And they, I don't know, I mean, they like them more, so it makes sense to use them, and they still have themes. So I let them get with a small group again, and they got to pick a movie that everyone in their group had seen and hopefully liked. I told them I recommend Disney movies or kids movies because it's a lot easier to pick the theme and stuff from like a kids movie. And then what we did was we talked about symbols. So symbolism and symbols is something else that the kids kind of struggle with understanding. So I told them they had to pick 3 one-sentence themes from the movies they had selected, or from the movie they pick. And then they also had to pick 3 symbols from that same movie. And I gave them another huge piece of this like anchor chart paper and told them I wanted them to be beautiful. I wanted to hang them up. So they wrote the name of the movie really big. They wrote their 3 themes. They drew 3 symbols, and then they had to tell me what the symbol was in the movie and then what it symbolized. So for instance, I had a group do Moana, and they drew Maui's fish hook, and then they put that it symbolized power. So they did a really good job with these, and they enjoyed them, and we took an entire class period to do them. And since they had a group, a lot of them finished in one class period, and they came the next day and talked to us and explained it to us. And I had them tell me why they knew that was the theme, or how they knew that this symbolized that. Because I'm pretty sure when they take the EOC and there's written questions, that's what they're going to ask them about. What's the theme? How do you know? What's the symbol? Or give a symbol. How do you know that? So we practice that. And a lot of times they're better at telling me out loud than they are putting it on paper. So those went really good. And then after we had done both of those activities, I told them that they could go around the room and pick a text that we had hanging up on the wall. So let's say A Doll's House. And they could pick one theme that any group had wrote. And they had to write 8 to 10 sentences, which is a lot for my kids. They think a paragraph is 3 to 5 sentences, and I told them 8 to 10. 8 to 10 sentences telling me how they know that's the theme and giving me examples. So that's the actual written part. And that part I made them do by themselves silently. I don't know why they didn't complain and why they did so good. I think it might have been because we had done a bunch of fun stuff, and maybe we had discussed it so much that they really felt like they had an answer, or the fact that they could choose what they wanted to talk about. But it was dead silent in here. Pin drop silent in here while they were working. And I haven't read all of them yet, but just looking at them, they look really good. So hopefully they understand theme and symbol now. And that's just one thing that we've done to review. Today we're going to do this other thing that I made. And all it is 8 boxes on one side, 8 more boxes on the other side, so 16 total if I can count. And it says stuff like simile, metaphor, dramatic irony, situational irony, verbal irony, personification, idiom, oxymoron, alliteration, automatopoeia, hyperbole, understatement, allusion, ethos, pathos, logos. And those are all literary devices or figurative language or whatever you want to call them that will show up on the test probably, so we need to review them. And they have to go around the room and tell a person. So like Kathy, you need to tell me an example of a metaphor. And then Kathy has to tell you an example of a metaphor. And Kathy can choose if she wants to tell you a correct one or an incorrect one. I say that because sometimes the kids get it wrong. So we'll say, oh, they gave you an incorrect one. And they have to know whether it's correct or incorrect. And if they think it's correct, then what they will do is they'll write it in the square right here under metaphor. And they'll have the person write or sign their name. And then they're not allowed to use that person anymore. So they have to talk to other people in the room. And my thought process on this is they're having to use other people's brain, but they have to be the one to know if it's correct or not. So it puts the pressure off of them when really we're putting the pressure on them, but they don't realize it. And it also forces my lower kids, if someone comes up to them and asks them, like, tell me some ethos, like they're going to struggle with it. But hopefully the kids will coach them through it and help them with it. They help each other a lot. So once they filled up the sheet, which will take 16 people, my 4th block class only has 12 kids in it, so I'm going to tell them they can use a person once on each side. So there's 8 squares, so that means they could use their friend like on one side and then on the other side. When they finish, I'm going to have them come up to me, or if it's in my inclusion class, my inclusion teacher, and we're going to sign the paper saying that it's all filled out. It's all, you've only used a person once, and also just glancing and making sure that there's like not a few that jump out that you're like, oh, that's wrong, which will help me with grading it later. And I told them I'm grading this on correctness. I'm not grading it on if you have participated. So they have to make sure they're right. They can't use their MacBooks. They can't use their phone. They can't use their notebook, notes, nothing. Like they have to use their brains. So this is a good way to get them up and moving. They think this is fun. I mean, it's be the exact same thing if I told them, get out a sheet of paper and give me an example for each one of these. But this is more fun, and they think that they're doing something cool. Sometimes I do prizes for this, like if I'm feeling in the prize kind of mood. So like sometimes I'll do, once you fill up the front page, like you can come get a piece of candy if they're all correct. The first person to complete the sheet gets something, but they all have to be correct. I'm probably not going to do that today because the kids are already crazy because it's like the end of the year, but that can be fun sometimes too. So that's some of the things we're doing to review. I'm going to show you around the room what the posters look like that I was talking about. Okay, so this is me trying to hold the laptop and film, so bear with me. Okay, so this one is from my inclusion class, and we did a folktales unit where we read a bunch of different stories. So for this one, like this group picked Anansi the Spider, Cinderella, King Midas, Ashputtel, Robin Hood. And for this one, I told them, like, you can pick any story we read in that unit, and we read a ton. So they liked being able to pick their own, and then they wrote the theme for it. These two are two from my honors class, so they haven't done this activity yet. And so here's one for Oedipus. We don't read all 3 of the Oedipus plays. We just read Oedipus the King in the middle. So we've got a bunch here. Like this one says, be aware of your surroundings. You can't always change your fate. And what I think is funny about this is like when we talk about the theme in class, a lot of times we'll say it's about fate. So the first group that kind of gets over here is the one that gets to say the easy one. The rest of the groups are challenged. So that's kind of fun. Here is one for night, which I think has a lot of different themes that you can talk about. We have one for A Doll's House, which my honors class will have to finish. And then let me show you some of the movie posters. So this one's for Beauty and the Beast. So they've got their 3 themes. And then they've got like the mirror, and they said, you know, it represents entrapment, fear. The pitchfork represents vanity and hatred. I don't think it represents vanity, but you know, this is inclusion, so we let them try. The rose represents freedom, love, beauty. And then let's go back over here. We've got Cinderella down here, which some of my boys did. Oh my gosh, do you see this pumpkin behind my chair? Let me tell you the funniest thing. So we're talking about symbols, and they drew the pumpkin, and I think they got excited to draw it, but they didn't like think about what it symbolized beforehand. So they drew the pumpkin, and they were like, I don't know what it symbolizes. And I was like, well, you're gonna have to think about it, like you drew it. And they said transportation. I know you English teachers sympathize with me on that one. Here's 2 that I love. I can't tell if you can see them or not. Okay, so this one's for Shrek. So we've got the sunflower, Shrek's helmet, and an onion. Of course, there's an onion. We got, can you see? I can't tell from the sun. Wreck-It Ralph, Ralph's fist, the medal, the cherry, and then their 3 themes. That one's really cute. I got to walk all the way around my room. You're just getting a nice panorama of my double chin and my classroom. So this one's from Monsters, Inc. So they did the eye, which represents authority, and it says always watching Wazowski. So that's Roz. The door represents mystery, the unknown. The scream tank represents power. And then there are 3 themes. Can you tell some of my boys did it because they scribbled? This group struggled. They did the Avengers. I think it's Infinity War. They picked an adult movie, and I said, you're going to have a hard time. And they did, but they didn't listen. We've got Aladdin. They did like the feather in the hat represents honesty. This represents change, the lamp, and then the magic carpet for loyalty. And then 2 of my other favorites, we've got Mulan, this beautiful cricky over here, and then of course the Moana one, which is probably the best one, Grandma Tala, the Heart of Te-Fiti, the Hook. So I will say, like, these were pretty easy to do. I just need a big paper. If you wanted each kid to do their own, you could give them a regular sheet of paper and have them do one theme and one symbol and decorate it. That could work good too. There's plenty of ways that you could do this. You could do it with partners instead of groups. But the kids really liked it, and I feel like they learned something, which is important when we do these things. So my honors class is going to do theirs today. Push yourself to really think of some fun ways for your kids to do stuff. And I will say, even in my rowdy classes that I usually don't let do fun stuff, they can handle these things. I will say this one, where they're up walking around, sometimes gets a little rowdy, but you know, you can always modify stuff to make it easy for your kids and your kids' ability and your kids' behavior. They could obviously do this sheet by themselves, you know, or get with a partner or a group instead of doing the whole class or something. Like maybe the girls have to talk to girls and boys have to talk to boys. I mean, there's so many different ways that you can do this. So have some fun with your review stuff. It's the end of the year. The kids are tired. I'm tired. It's so much more interesting to do fun stuff. Hope you enjoyed this. Hope you can use it some in your classroom, and tell me what are some of the ways that you review with your kids, because I need every idea I can get, because we have the rest of this week. Next week, then there's exams. So I have a whole nother week of stuff that I have to figure out. See you soon. Bye.